All aboard. A call or warning to all passengers to board a mode of transportation. Dream. A succession of images, ideas, emotions, and sensations that usually occur involuntarily in the mind during sleep. Train. A form of transport consisting of a series of connected vehicles moved as one unit along fixed rails. We spend around 1/3 of our lives sleeping, and while the world around us seems to shut down, our brains stay extremely active. Our dreams are very personal and intimate, and are usually only shared with those that are closest to us. Welcome to All Aboard the Dream Train, a show where the narratives and experiences created by the unconscious brain are retold by the dreamer.
I'm in a dream. You can't give me anything.
Right.
And he's like, no, you'll have it. He's like, this, whatever I give to you, you will have in your actual life. I'm like, no. And I felt like he didn't understand. I'm like, no, that's not how this works. I'm like, I'm going to wake up and there's not going to be anything, I can't bring something back.
Right.
With me. He said, what do you want? Well, he was wearing this strange, it was like a hoodie of some sort, and it was these weird like greens and yellows, and it was like this weird like tightly knitted like little zigzags and whatnot, and it was like this oversized like kind of like a poncho of some sort, but it had like a hood sort of a thing. And I said, I want that. I want that. I'm like a bastard, aren't I? Like I go to some shaman and I take the clothing off the guy's back. Right. But again, I was pretty young, and I'm just like, yeah. I'm like, can I have that? He goes, sure, absolutely. So he he takes this thing off and he gives it to me, and I put it on, and I'm still telling him, I'm like, it's not going to be on me when I wake up. And he goes, you'll have it. You'll have it. So, I woke up and it was not there. I mean, I'm not going to, that would be, I think that would have stopped my heart if that were the case. But when I woke up, I mean, there was a little bit of me going, I mean, I kind of checked for a second because I was like, oh, I'm going to lose my mind if somehow this thing is on me.
Right.
But the weird thing is that it was about 3, maybe 4 years later, I was in Oregon. Actually, that's right. I was in Oregon, and I found that hoodie and I bought it.
Really?
I found it. I mean, it was like, I'm like, that's it. And I was with my girlfriend at the time. I said, that's what this guy was wearing. She's like, this is like some, in fact, hold on a second.
Dude, go grab it. That would be
I got to go find
awesome.
it. So yes, it's nothing fancy. I mean, it's just it's a hoodie. I mean, but I put it on, I mean, in the store, and I'm like, this is it. I mean, I don't know what that means. And I'm like, again, I'm a skeptic. I'm real, like, I'm always going, I was always trying to punch holes in this because I'm a real kind of science-minded kind of guy. I always wanted to, I didn't want to be somebody who was just, I felt like with these kind of experiences, that could really send you down a rabbit hole where you can really just let your imagination get away from you. And I'm sure lots of people think that's already the case, right? Like you've just let your imagination get away from you. But all I can say is that I tried to approach this in as sober a manner as I possibly could. Like, what is this real? Is this happening? That's all I could do. So this is, I mean, so of course I bought the hoodie. I had to get it, like this is my hoodie. I'm like, seems like I shouldn't have had to pay for it, but I paid for it. I don't know.
Is it a long sleeve? Can you put it up? Put it up real close to the camera?
Sure. Yeah, it's like, let me back.
Okay.
Really see this, but it's like it's a full long sleeve.
Yeah.
Right,
That's
like it's a hoodie. I don't know. I'm like, this is it. This is what was. And my girlfriend, that was just like next thing. She's just like, you're insane. Like I don't even know what to think of you. I mean, and which is a whole other thing because it makes dating real weird because
Huh.
I live in Boulder, and Boulder is like filled with a bunch of fake hippies is what
Okay.
I call them. Like a lot of people who like they've taken a few yoga classes and they're like, yeah, I'm basically like the Buddha now, right? I'm
You're
like,
right.
I've taken a yoga class. And so, it's real
Yeah.
confusing to me because I've run into a lot of women who like, they seem to be speaking my language,
Yeah.
and then they start really getting to know me. Like, you're serious about this. Like, you're like, you're genuinely insane, aren't you? And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, this is real, because at first I think people are like, ooh, that sounds
Cool.
exciting, right? It
Right.
sounds cool. But then, and even I thought that. I mean, I
Hmm.
thought these dream things, it was cool, it was exciting. But when the astral projection started kicking in, when I started to have to, when I started really had to start really facing that I was whatever it means to leave your body, and I don't know what that means yet, but I started being able to visit friends and family. I started to really pay attention, like, oh, hey, there's my mom and I'm on campus in Muncie, Indiana at Ball State, and my mother is still back up in Northwest Indiana outside of Chicago, about a good, maybe what was that, maybe 3 hour drive or so.
Hmm.
I would, so for example, I could I'd go visit mom, for a few moments, and I would watch what she was doing. I'd look at the clock on the wall, even in my lucid experiences, and I'd see what she was wearing, that she was cooking breakfast, what was going on, detail after detail. And then again, being the skeptic that I was, I'd wake up in the morning, I'd call mom later, and my friends and family got used to these weird questions from me, that because I'd be like, okay, I need you to explain blow by blow exactly what you were doing at 7 in the morning. And then as these stories started coming back to me, one after the other, where it was, I mean, there was no discrepancy, I mean, none,
Damn, dude.
down to what they were doing, down to, I'm like, did you drop a pan? Did you drop that big frying pan that out of the bottom thing underneath the stove before, when you pulled out? Because I saw, and she's like, oh my God, you saw that? I'm like, I saw that. She's like, where
Whoa.
were you? I'm like, I was in the living room. And then I started asking psychics after a while. I'm like, could someone see me when I'm doing this? Like,
Hmm.
and if they could, what would that look like? Like, which opens up a whole other can of worms. Like,
Right.
is that what ghosts are? I don't know. Like,
Wow, dude.
we think ghosts are people who are dead, but maybe they're just people who are just asleep. I mean, I don't
Hmm.
know.
Yeah.
We don't have
Hmm.
those answers, and I don't know what to think about that. But my point was is that
Hmm.
as these practices progressed, I didn't. It wasn't fun to me at first. I was like,
Hmm.
oh,
Yeah.
when people started telling me exactly what they were watching on television, things like, I'm like, oh, I
Starting
don't
to
know what to
freak out a
do.
little bit.
Yeah, it was. It was
Yeah.
like, it's kind of like because as strange as these experiences were, there was always a nice, neat, rational explanation behind it all, where I could say, yeah, but I can still tell myself that it's all just happening in my head.
Hmm.
Right. I mean, that was kind of my safety valve that I kind of relied on for a while, until after enough stories came back where I was seeing, exactly what's going on, outside. And again, at this time, I had no idea there was a natural connection between what we call lucid dreaming and what they call an out of body experience. I had no idea I didn't know there was we didn't have the internet
Yeah.
again.
Right.
So, now you can go
Hmm.
find 50 groups on Facebook that it's literally called lucid dreaming and astral projection. Like, oh, of course, and you'll have 20 people who tell you all about exactly how those
Right.
are. Like, at the
Right.
time, I didn't know. I had no
Yeah.
idea. So I'm like, what does that mean? I thought I was just kind of bringing some consciousness into my dream states. And
Hmm.
now, how the heck does that connect to me leaving my body? And
Yeah.
that's still something that I don't entirely understand, but
Hmm.
like I said, I have a working model, which is all that a model can do for you. I have a framework that this seems to make sense to me from. And
Hmm.
the more I describe it, the more people come back to me, and they're like, you're basically describing models that have been designed by mystics thousands of years, in the past. I'm like, yeah, I don't doubt it. I'm like, I'm sure
Yeah.
I'm not the first person to come across any of this stuff, but I
Yeah.
didn't, like I said, I wasn't raised religious.
Yeah.
I didn't have a background in any of this kind of stuff. And I didn't, I'd heard There was an actress who you probably don't know either. Her name was Shirley MacLaine, who kind of started the New Age movement. Yeah, and Shirley MacLaine was an actress, and I think she's still alive today. Sorry, Shirley, if you are if for me questioning your actual. Sorry, I think she's alive still, but she was one of the first people to kind of come out, who was kind of respected and famous, and started talking about these things, but. I never had read her books or anything. All I knew was that there were some people who were starting to talk about these things, but they were still kind of considered, yeah,
Right.
they went crazy,
Yeah,
and now we have full, we can talk about these things, and it's not so, and that's good. I think it's definitely a good thing.
absolutely.
We need people who are willing to go into these weird subjects and just open up about them. It's good for us.
As you were saying that, this kind of like popped in my head. Like there is a definite group of people that were experiencing this before the internet. And so there's a whole group of people that were like on the internet at some point seeing like, whoa, like there's a bunch of other people having these experiences.
Right.
And so there's like, a lot of people out there that were kind of in the dark about what was going on and different types of experiences. And then slowly as the internet came about. So yeah, I mean,
yep. I was one of my degrees is in English, so I had to study things like Walt Whitman. Walt Whitman was, in case anyone doesn't know, he's a famous poet, from quite some time ago. He would speak about in his poetry things that sounded very much like spiritual awakenings, very much like mystical experiences. But again, this is like 100 some years ago or so, where people did not have the tools to really talk about these things. We don't come from a culture that it really even allows those kind of discussions. I mean, being a Western culture that's mostly based on Christianity, any workings with this sort of stuff is that's messing with forces you're not supposed to be messing with.
true.
And
Very true.
and that's unfortunately that when that's the only discussion that there is to be had on that subject is you don't do that. That doesn't help. And that leaves a lot of people, especially luckily for me, I'm glad I wasn't raised in that kind of household, thank God, because like I said, these things happened to me spontaneously. It just started happening. One morning after I drove my mom to work. I mean, I'm just like, and my life changed.
Yeah.
Like it was, and like you're saying, how many people just didn't even have a place where they could even safely talk about this stuff. So man, that's awesome. It's good. It's good you're doing this kind of stuff. It's good that people are talking about these things.
Absolutely, dude.
I didn't talk about, I just wanted to catch up on something.
Oh, absolutely.
We had a couple of things, some loose ends. I did mention something about that music that I heard.
Yeah, dude.
So there is I did learn fairly recently, actually, that there might be a rational explanation for this particular one, but it doesn't make sense. But it's one of those things that if I were playing the skeptic, I would say, yeah, but. So here's the story.
Okay.
Like that music that I heard while I was about to be shot into the atmosphere was something I had heard. It's like the information that was there was, this is music that has always been with you, and it will be there to meet you as like a friend in every incarnation. It's always going to be there for you. And so this was years later. I was in college, and I was in the back seat of somebody's car. I couldn't tell you who. This was a while back, and I'm hearing some song for the first time, and then this sort of the chorus kicks in, and it's that chorus. It's that music. And so you have to appreciate how strange this was for everybody else in the car. So I'm in the back seat, right? This music comes on. This poor girl is behind the wheel, and there's like 4 of us in the car, maybe 5. And I have what is only could be described as a complete freaking nervous breakdown. I mean, I'm like freaking out. I mean, I'm like bawling. I'm like, and I almost jump into the front seat. I'm like, what is this, what band is it? Where did this come from?
Oh my God.
So this was a new release. Had just been released at the time from a band. Oh my God, what's their name? Am I actually going to forget their name?
Don't say Limp Bizkit or something.
No.
I'm just kidding.
How weird.
Red Durst.
There's this record scratching. It was the weirdest thing. I don't even know what's No, it was it's Bittersweet Symphony.
Okay. Yeah.
What's that
Very
band
familiar.
name? Exactly. That background music, that dun, dun, dun,
Oh,
dun,
the Verve.
dun, the Verve. There you go.
The Verve.
So here's the thing.
Yeah.
It was that. I mean, in
Whoa.
perfect clarity, it was that background to Bittersweet Symphony. But now again, when I had that dream, the Verve wasn't even a thing. Okay, this was not, that music had not been released when I had this lucid dream. Wow. It would be years. But the Verve did steal some of their background music from the Rolling Stones.
Okay. Huh.
So I did hear a version that the Rolling Stones had produced that it's very similar to that kind of background music, but all I can say is that it's kind of the similar. It's doing a similar thing, but it's not. The Verve is the version that I heard. Is all I can say. Like I'm like that was not like that's not what it was. And again, the Rolling Stones, they're old. They were older. That music would have been around. I never liked the Rolling Stones. I never listened to the Rolling Stones. Not really my thing. Not really my kind of music. Right. So I mean, does that mean that I could have heard it on some radio when I was 7 years old and it was in the background and some part of my brain just recorded it for some reason. Oh, I like that little, again. But like I said, I've now had so many of these kind of experiences where I'm like, 9 times out of 10, there isn't a good rational explanation. After a while, saying something is coincidence, I think is irresponsible. I mean, you can say something's a coincidence. I don't think we should look at every damn connection that happens as a, I was touched by an angel today. Right. I'm like, well, you had the same, whatever. I mean, but all I can say is after a while, after you have enough detailed information, you got to say, all right, my old framework isn't working anymore. I need an upgrade. I need to reevaluate. So how does the world really work? And that's what I was forced to do again and again and again. Just go, all right, well, this is how this works. Now this is how this works. Clearly I can leave my body, whatever that means, whatever that means.
Dude, that's a really good song too. I love that song.
Isn't it a great song? It's a great song.
Playing in my head right now.
Right. And even the strangeness of it, of the words of the song, even I'm a million different people from one moment to the next or something is what he's saying. The idea, and I was in the body of this other, this idea that it's all life. Life is a bittersweet symphony, and there's laughter, it's like, and he's saying, I'm one person to 1 minute, I'm another person to the next. And I'm like, man, that's like, it's even like it went with what had happened in that dream. So, like I said, I don't know, man. It's the universe is a strange place.
It's just funny when you say that, like you're in a car. I can just imagine like teenagers in the car and you're like, hey man, guys, you gotta be quiet. I heard this from a different astral projection plane. You gotta chill out.
Just shut up and just
turn the song up.
Turn the song up. Oh yeah, I lost it. I was like, oh my God. What was even stranger, and I didn't finish the rest of the story.
Please do.
We were at the time, either in Muncie or just outside of Muncie, Indiana. We were driving on Bittersweet Road at that time. We were driving on Bittersweet Road.
Dude, that's a fucking trip, man.
Crap you negative. I swear to you that is absolute. And I'm like, it's just another one of those things. I'm like, okay. All right. What do you do with that? I don't even know. I'm just like, okay. Okay.
Jeez, dude.
So my life is a joke now to you. Right? Is that it?
Wow, that's a trip, man.
Yeah, right.
What are the chances? Yeah, I mean,
yeah, exactly. Like, what are the chances? I'm like, I don't even know. Like, one of the most significant experiences of my life has also, by the way, all these insane connections to it. All right, well, there you go.
All these bonkers synchronicities. That's
Yep.
Wild, man. That is such a cool story, though.
I don't think I've really told that story completely. Well, I mean, not on air. I've told other people who were willing to listen, but yeah, I've not.
I
I don't think I've
mean,
really, a lot of the shows, especially the big time shows, they want the juicy stuff that more people can relate to. People want to talk about demons, people do. They want to talk about the
yeah,
dark stuff. They want to talk about, and I mean, I'm happy to go there if we want
yeah,
to. It's not like I shy away from that stuff. It should be discussed. We shouldn't shy away from those
no,
topics.
totally, absolutely.
There are frightening things in that level of
Hmm.
awareness, absolutely. But it's like it's what's sad to me is that so many people who come to this practice come with so much fear already
Hmm.
of like, I watched some horror movie where this guy astrally projected and his body got possessed by some demon. I'm like, if it's honest, if that's where your head is at,
Yeah.
I don't mean to sound like a snob, but this might not be for you. If that's really the stuff you're holding on to,
Hmm.
you've got to go into this with a sense of adventure, just kind
Yeah.
of, you can't take it too seriously. And again,
Interesting.
luckily I was an atheist. So I was just, the idea of all that stuff,
Totally.
immediately I'm just like, well, I'm fine. I don't believe in demons. So
Right. Yeah.
so whatever. I don't
No
care.
big deal. Yeah,
Nope. No big
I
deal.
could see how that could probably be very confusing and
Sure.
tough for someone that believed a little bit more and
Yeah,
you know,
traditional, yeah, some of the more dogmatic worldview, whatever it
yeah,
is, and there's
totally.
lots of them.
Yes.
Whatever it is, it's more of those dogmatic worldviews generally often do not like its followers endeavoring into these worlds by
Yeah. No.
themselves. Like, no, that's for the priestesses, or
Hmm.
that's for the monks, that's for the reverends, that's for whoever. I mean, it's not
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Totally.
uh, I say to all of that.
Yeah.
I'm trying to watch my language. I'm used to being told not to curse on these shows. So, but you know what I'm saying? I'm just like, yeah, screw all that. Like,
It's very black and white thinking, and
yeah, that
like
sucks.
for a lot of things, I'm like very gray area until like it's been proven or whatever. Like you know, I mean, I could probably just give examples, but I'm just like gray until I have actual and like I've experienced something firsthand. Like it's kind of gray for me.
Right, exactly. Like, I'm pretty sure the Earth isn't flat, for example,
Right.
which is funny because a lot of people will come to me like, "Oh, you talk about weird paranormal stuff, so obviously we're on the same page
Hmm.
that we're living on a flat Earth." I'm like,
Hmm.
you are barking up the wrong tree with me on that. I'm sorry.
Uh-uh.
Like, I don't, I don't even see a reason to think that's even possible. Why?
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
yeah, so I get that sort of stuff every once in a
Uh,
while. Like, oh, sure, like we're all like, I'm not on the same narrative with you on that.
yeah.
Sorry.
I bet you get that a lot. I can only imagine.
More times than not. I mean, not just conspiracy stuff, which again, I have less of a problem with the idea of like Bigfoot and aliens than
Hmm.
I do if you're going to try to honestly tell me that the world is flat at this point. The amount of secrets alone that would have to be kept from us from NASA is like, I'm like, you're telling me how many hundreds of thousands of people have been keeping this
Right.
secret that, I mean, it's just insane.
Yeah.
That alone, the structure that it would take to keep people quiet about this. And like, all right.
Hmm.
I talk to those guys every once in a while though. I'm like, because I really want to. I have an open mind still. I still want to go.
It's fun to
Maybe
talk about.
it is,
Yeah.
and I've asked them many times. I'm like, do you? I've asked them about the model that they have in their head. I'm like, how do you? I'm like, because I keep on thinking maybe they have some, at least a basic structure in their head
Structure. Yeah.
that I could look at and go, okay, I get it, I can understand.
Hmm.
But every time I ask a basic question about how that structure works, immediately they get pissed off at me, and that because their
Mm.
ideas fall apart. And I'm like, well, maybe that's when you should know it's time to upgrade your thinking. Like, if
Right.
you shouldn't be so upset about a couple of direct questions.
Hmm.
If you really believe in something, that's why I welcome questions. When people tell
Yeah.
me that they're a skeptic about what I've experienced, I'm like, bring it on, because so am
Hmm.
I.
Hmm.
I don't trust people who aren't skeptics. You should
Yeah.
be a skeptic. Question everything.
Yeah. Totally. I
But
agree.
after a while, I mean, when the information's out there, and it's like, I think I'm comfortable that if I really am living on a flat Earth, you know what, I'm just going to be okay with that. That I'm
Right.
I'm okay with just believing that it's a sphere for now. How about
Yeah. Yeah.
that?
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah,
Yeah. Damn, dude.
I know.
We have so much awesome content like already. But like I will never tell someone, that's enough. I mean,
Dude, I get you. I know. We've been on the air for a while. How long do your shows
it's
usually go?
awesome though, dude. I'm a long format guy. Like I listen to
Oh
a
yeah,
lot of long format. I love long shows.
yeah. All right.
Usually 45 minutes to an hour, hour and a half. But dude,
How much recording time do we have right now? Just out of curiosity, you know what we
I
have
I had
about?
at least, I think at least a half an hour, or a half an hour, 45 minutes, hour and 45 minutes, I think
Okay.
is about. But dude, I'm totally fine. Like we can totally keep going. I'm totally
I'm
fine with
good.
that.
I'm good. I do have to get up in the morning,
Okay.
so I could tell another story. How about that? I'm happy to tell you another some wacky,
Okay.
one of my more crazy things that have happened.
Cool.
Um,
Let's go for
but
it, man.
yeah, maybe try to shoot for maybe cutting it down within the next 40 minutes, somewhere in that general, and then I'm good. I like
Yeah.
again. I don't care.
We could
I'm
always,
not on a schedule. I'm not on a
yeah.
schedule.
I mean, we could always do a part two too. I mean, it's
Well, we should do that anyway. I mean,
okay.
regardless, one
Yeah,
way or the
yeah.
other. I'm fine with coming back. I love talking about this stuff. I'll talk
Cool.
about this stuff all day long. I
Awesome,
don't
man.
mind. I doesn't. This is a joy to me. So
Cool,
it's
man. Yeah. Let's shoot for it, man.
all right.
Another
Let's do
40
another
minutes
story.
and cool. Let's get it.
So I got another thing. I mean, it's really when you ask me about what's the top 10 or 20 or even, of like
Yeah.
crazy things that have happened. I can go in so many directions. I mean, it's really tough, but
Hmm.
this one is one of them that stands out for me, and I've not discussed it before. I've not even written about it because it's so.
Awesome.
We'll see we'll see how well I do trying to explain it
Yeah.
because it's really abstract.
Okay.
So this is what happened. This was one of my lucid dreams where definitely endogenous. And when I say endogenous, for those who are just not aware, when we say endogenous, we are talking about your body naturally produces a whole number of chemicals, which if they were to be found outside of the body, they would be Schedule 1 substances
Hmm.
like DMT. I mean, your body naturally makes DMT. We don't know why. And it seems that every living thing actually
So
makes some level of DMT.
yeah, it's on a lot
Plants,
of plants
animals,
and yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
totally.
they've in fact it's been theorized that maybe every basic form of life seems to somehow manufacture some quantities of it,
Yeah.
and they don't know why exactly. It's
Hmm.
fascinating.
Yeah,
It's
really is.
interesting. But DMT, it's a dimethyltryptamine. It is perhaps the most powerful hallucinogen that we know of. I can't even uh, theorize. Can you talk about this? Have you done psychoactives?
Just psilocybin and
Psilocybin
very
will do it.
yeah, yeah. But in like very small, I don't microdose. It's like
Okay.
between like the like concert dose and microdose,
A
like that
concert
one
dose. I like it.
that
Yeah,
like
sure.
1 gram area. I do really believe that it like resets the brain. I've
Absolutely.
done big doses, like 5 gram doses. I need to do them
Wow.
again, but it's been a while. But I
Okay.
know I need to get into that again,
Cool.
just once a year or whatever. But
Psilocybin's great. In fact, that's
yeah,
probably one of my favorites.
really.
I think it's just so it's reliable. It's safe.
Mm-hmm.
You when you
Mushroom.
have a mushroom in front of you, you know what you've got, and
Yeah.
I'd say it's reliable is the nice thing. When I have like a tab of blotter in front of me, I have no idea what I've got in my hand. I mean,
Kind of scary.
it is, and that's how I started though. My introduction to psychedelics was with LSD. I mean, I went from not even smoking pot to somebody handed me
Oh
a hit of acid, and I was like, wow.
shit. All right.
Like I had no idea that drugs could even do something like that. I
This
mean,
is
it's like, oh,
drugs.
this is drugs now. Like, okay, now I
Yeah.
understand. It's like I understood immediately. I'm like, okay, now I understand what Jimi Hendrix was talking about. I'm
Right.
like, I get it now. Like, and it is.
Yeah.
It's funny because Jimi Hendrix talks about the idea of being experienced, and that
Hmm.
is so absolutely true. And in fact, you're about to read my book, and so I'm going to mention something else about
Yeah,
my
dude.
book. There's actually a small part where our hero of the story, Dr. Eden Jessup. She is a lucid dreaming theologist.
Okay.
She talks about that in one of her college lectures in the opening of the book about the idea that if until you've done a psychedelic, you are a little bit on the outside of a world that only people. It's like a club
Hmm.
essentially, and
Hmm.
and it's not a hard club to get into. You just have to
Yeah.
be willing to go into it. But I truly believe there is before psychedelics and there's after psychedelics,
Yeah.
in the same way as that there is pre lucid dreaming and then there is post lucid dreaming. It can be that impactful. But anyway, enough of my diatribe. What was I talking about? we were
Psychedelics.
so we were
We
talking
got
about
into that
psychedelics in general. Yes.
experience.
So this was one of these experiences where, like I said, DMT was definitely kicked in, and the lucid dream started in my bed, but it wasn't my bed, sort of a thing. Like I was in a room that was perfectly dark, and I was in a bed that appeared very much like my own actual bed in my bedroom, but it wasn't. It was just slightly different. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, it was actually sort of a mix between the current bed that I was in, the apartment that I was in at the time, and my childhood home. That's typical for my brain to
Hmm.
mix in stuff from my childhood, like,
Yeah.
the house I grew up in, yada, yada. So I'm in my bed and I become lucid, and there in front of me is a, a device that almost looks like a Rubik's Cube. I would say sort of, but it's like, it didn't have like the colored sides as much as it was that shape, and each, it had those like individual squares around it, and it was like, it was a box, right? So this thing starts shaking, it starts vibrating on the bed, and I lift this thing up, and it's like this buzzing energy is coming out of this thing, and I'm like, and I start to hallucinate like in the dream, and I know that DMT is being kicked in. Like, it's not just I'm dreaming, I'm hallucinating. I mean, I'm, it's not just what you see with the psychedelic. It is
Mm.
all that visceral experience, all that the feeling that almost a foreign consciousness, has sort of entered your brain a little
Little,
bit. It's a,
little
you know what I'm, you
come
know
up
what I'm,
feeling,
a what now? What'd you
like
say?
the come up feeling, like the
Yes.
like okay, things are changing, like for
They're
sure. Like
changing. You almost feel
yeah.
like, yeah, there's something moving through you that's not, that's
Hmm.
just different, a
Hmm.
foreign substance. So that's what comes on, and this thing starts, lights start coming out of this box and whatnot. The next thing I know, the energy like overwhelms my body, and I am shot back out into the atmosphere. And I all I can feel is that I am moving at some insane speed, and it's like I am kind of like being, I had this feeling of almost being bounced off of different points throughout the cosmos. Did you ever see the movie Contact with Jodie Foster by chance?
I haven't, no.
Okay, not
Yeah.
important. It's just this weird scene that they do at the end where this she blasts off into space, and it was very much like
Oh wow.
a scene from that movie at the end. It's a good movie. You should see it. It was
Okay.
written by Carl Sagan, so it's a great
Oh,
story.
sick.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
into
it's like
that.
one of the few stories that he wrote that they actually turned into a movie. It's a
Wow.
fun movie.
That's
Yeah, and
awesome.
it's a great book. It's a great movie.
Cool.
Anyway, enough of the plug. So I bounce off of several points, for lack of a better term, and I land face down in very light snow, is what it feels like. So I kind of pick myself up and I look around, and I kind of look as if everything looks like I'm sort of on, imagine that someone is doing a movie about being in like the North Pole, okay?
Okay.
But it's a sound stage, if that makes sense. It's not really the North Pole. It's more like a really good set that someone has built, and it's like you can see off all around me. It's like there's like an edge, like a horizon, so to speak, but you can't
Hmm.
really tell where the horizon is. But it's like being on some giant movie set almost. And it was the weirdest thing. I'm like, well, the snow seems real, but there's no features. There's no hills. There's no trees. There's not even bumps. There's no geography or detail to this land whatsoever. And above me is nothing but crisp blue sky, right? It's just, there's not even stars. It's just like, but it's like the way the sky looks at dusk, right? You
Hmm.
still kind of have that light blue at the bottom on the horizon, but above me it was fairly dark for the most part. So I'm standing there again. I am fully awake. I'm fully aware of my circumstances. I know that I'm in a dream state, whatever that means. So I kind of start walking in one direction, and the scenery just isn't changing. So I'm like, well, where am I? So I kind of turn around and I try to go in another direction, and I am walking and I am walking, and there is just nothing. And I'm like, I'm starting to kind of go, well, I know that I've been brought here. Like like there's an intent here on some level. I'm
Hmm.
supposed to see something, but I don't know what it is. So here's a neat little trick that you can do when you are in these states of
All right.
consciousness. You can literally, and this seems to be a universal quality. I've spoken now to so many hundreds of other lucid dreamers who have done this trick. When you are lost or you are stuck or you need some sort of advice, you can simply ask for it.
Hmm.
You just simply raise your head and just call out a question, and you will get a response.
Really?
And it's weird. I
Whoa.
mean, and it's a response that is, for most people, at least specifically with myself, when I have done this, the response is so detailed and accurate. It's like, where did this come from? Like, who is even talking? I couldn't even tell you if it was a male or a female voice, because what I did is I just called out. I said, where am I? What is this? What's going on? And this booming voice that just sort of seemed to come from every direction. And like I said, it wasn't like a male voice, wasn't a female voice. It said, look up, point, just look up into the sky and pay attention. I said, okay. So I do what I'm told, I'm like, I look
Hmm.
up in the sky, and this sort of like a little portal of some sort kind of opens, like a tear in space of some sort. And so it's like this aperture opens up, and this structure slowly starts emerging out of this portal, and it is intricate and it is glorious and it is amazing, but I can't quite make sense of it. It's got parts that look like it's a perfect shiny sort of high polished chrome. Some of it looks like metal, some of it looks like I'm looking at machinery, and my brain is just trying to figure out, like, what is this most incredible thing I'm staring at.
Hmm.
And as this thing fully emerges into the space above my head, I finally realize that I'm staring at a bulldozer.
Hmm.
I mean, so I'm standing there going, oh, holy crap, okay, it's a bulldozer. But it was the most glorious bulldozer I had ever seen in my life. It was like, there was something about it, and I can't describe this real easily, as this is so
Wow.
abstract.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was the perfect bulldozer, whatever that means.
All right. Oh.
It's and it wasn't just a matter of how it looked. It wasn't just that each piece, every bolt, every nut was perfectly, there was no dirt on it. It wasn't
Clean.
really
Just
about that. It was
yeah.
that it's like I was looking at the perfection of a bulldozer.
Hmm.
So this thing floats across the sky, and I am just in absolute mesmerized awe at this thing that would, in our daily life, it would just be a very as ordinary can get. Like, yep,
Right.
there's a bulldozer. Like,
Yeah.
there's, it's not like I'd lost my mind. Like, I've
Right.
suddenly, like, I'm just in love with bulldozers now. It wasn't like, it was
Yeah.
simply a
Yeah.
matter of, this was some essence of perfection. So I call out back into the cosmos. I'm like,
Hmm.
okay, what is this? What am I looking at? The voice replies very succinctly, you are in a, and I don't remember the words that
Hmm.
this voice used exactly. I can't remember the exact phrasing,
Right.
but this was so I'm paraphrasing, but
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I understand
The
exactly what was
message.
I still totally know the message
Yeah.
exactly. It says you are in this in-between space that's sort of like a loading zone. This is the point between the original idea of something and then the manifestation of that idea. So you are seeing the original, in this particular case, you are seeing the essential, the original idea of a bulldozer in its purest form before it ever became a thing that actually exists on your planet. And so to you, you're seeing this directly. It's the most celestial object you could ever possibly imagine. And in theory, the idea is that everything that can exist, no matter how simple, no matter how complex, down to a simple atom, I would imagine, all the way up to a complete, galaxy, somehow lives also in its original form in this state, in this primordial, before it has ever become a complete working thing on any level. Now, here's the thing about this.
Yeah.
I've studied on this idea, and Plato had this idea. He called it essentialism. Plato spoke about this, that there is actually a spot somewhere in the universe that is just exactly what I've described. It's a sort of, where everything exists in its purest sense, as it exists before it's been manifested, is the best way I can describe it.
Interesting. Yeah.
So it's kind of like the idea of like, you had perhaps, at some point you had an idea to do this podcast. So in this philosophy, the idea is that somewhere that idea exists in its rawest, most perfect form when it was first considered, when it was first conceived. And if you could see that original inception point of this idea, for example, I'm just using this as one thing, it would be the most awe-inspiring, it would be the most incredible celestial idea that you've ever laid eyes on, is the best way I could describe it. So the weird thing about this is that I've read this from Plato before, and I never even agreed with it. I never even believed it. It sounds, to me, it's like, I still don't even know what I think about it to this day, but that's what I was shown. And it was the strangest, thing I'd ever seen. And I still, like I said, I never went back there ever again. I was shown the original, again, Plato called it essentialism. I was shown the essential nature of a bulldozer, whatever that means. And again, in theory, the idea is that there's an essential nature to everything, every idea, everything out there. And I don't even know if I believe that, but that was what I experienced. And it was, I'm like, okay, I was shown a bulldozer.
the most perfect,
the bulldozer of all bulldozers, right?
Damn.
I'm like, okay, yeah. So, and I just thought that, I don't even know what I learned from that vision, but it was so odd. I remember, I think I woke up and I was even laughing. I mean, I was just even like, and I've had dreams like where I literally would wake up giggling. I'm like, that was just the most absurd thing ever. Because in some points, I would even, I'm so lucid that I'd be able to even think of a joke or something like that. And I'd still be laughing from it when I'd wake up, or whatever. That's happened a bunch of times. So yeah, that was my bulldozer dream. The idea of going to, and again, it was like going to, look it up. You should go look at, read what Plato said about it. It's called essentialism, and he wrote this nice little this thing about it. Yeah, it's fun to go back and read it. And that's all I can say is, the place he's talking about. Yeah, I went there and I saw that. I was there for like 15 minutes, and it was amazing.
That's so crazy. Yeah, so it wasn't really like a whole lot of takeaway from that. I mean, not yet.
No.
Anyways,
I guess not. And like I said, because it's not something I have no real use for it.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, the takeaway. It was like, I was just shown this weird, like, oh, by the way, here's this over here. I'm like, all right. I mean, it was in full color, full totally awake, totally conscious. And I'm like, I don't even know if I still don't believe it. Like, I don't even know. I'm like, okay, that's cool.
Wow.
So yeah. Good stuff.
Yeah. Oh, dude.
But I woke up one time. Remember, the only other time I woke up laughing my butt off was and this is a quick one. I found myself I became lucid as I was walking down one of the main drags in downtown Chicago. And this was like, it was in the morning, but I was in downtown Chicago and it was very chilly out. So I was like, well, I'm kind of chilly. Now, this is a kind of abstract to describe. You can do things in lucid dreams, but the bigger thing that you do, it can kind of throw you off balance, and you can get kicked out of a lucid dream if you do something too crazy that you don't have the energy or the skill for. I could talk about this whole concept for a long time. Maybe we'll do it on another
Cool.
program,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
let's just say for now that I could have just changed the weather. That is a big miracle, so to speak. Whatever that means, that's a big miracle, and that would take possibly all of my focus. What would be easier is to find a jacket. That takes less energy in a lucid dream than changing the weather. Now, I'm going to fully agree that this is absolutely a mental barrier, and this is a narrative barrier. Like, that's still a story that I have stuck in my head about it's like what Yoda said to Luke. You have watched Star Wars, right?
Yes, I have watched Star Wars.
Just making sure, like, the idea that
That's
the rock is easy to lift, but the X-wing out of the swamp is hard. And Yoda's saying, like, yeah, but it's just all, like, it doesn't matter like how big it is. That's just all in your head.
Yeah.
And so I tend to agree with that philosophy, actually, like on some level, that there are barriers you still have to get over in your lucid dreams. Anyway, so I have to go find a jacket. So I'm like, well, that's fine. That's easy enough. I'll pick a door and I'll just sort of kind of project myself and say, there's going to be a clothing shop behind this particular door. It's easier to go through a door and find something that you want, again, as opposed to just popping it out of thin air. You can do both, but there's an energy consumption.
Interesting.
And specifically, it's what I would say, it's a conscious, it almost seems like you are using some sort of conscious focus. It's like it's like you got a little focus meter that goes down a little bit, and you'll like go out, or you'll actually get sucked back into some narrative, and you'll just become it'll just turn into a normal dream.
I gotcha.
We can talk about the dynamics of this more later, but it is interesting.
Oh, dude,
I still don't know what to make of it, but this is also very common with most lucid dreamers when we talk about these things, that to do a trick, it's easier to go through a door and find it. Anyway, so I walk into a clothing shop. Well, there's jackets, there's racks, so now all I have to do is just go find a jacket. I'm like, all right, I don't want this to take too long. I'm going to get back to my adventure walking around downtown Chicago. So I'm about to go take this jacket off the rack. And before I do that, there's a person who's just moving on their own will, which that always freaks me out in my lucid dreams when there's other characters that are just doing and saying things that I'm like, where is this coming from? I'm not consciously thinking about this. So where is all of this momentum coming from? That tripped me up forever because it's such a weird thing. Anyway, this guy behind me steals a coat off another rack and runs out the door. Got it?
Got it.
So I'm sitting there, I kind of watch this guy go out the door. I'm like, well, that was a strange thing. Now I hear some whimpering, and I look, and there's this old man behind the counter who's just sitting there, and he's shaking his head. He says, I can't believe I just keep getting robbed. I keep getting robbed. People keep coming into here and they just steal my stuff, which is what I was about to do. I was just about, I'm in a dream. I'm just going to take this jacket. So this guy's like, I'm just sitting there watching this guy, and he's like upset and whatnot. So now I've got like this weird moral dilemma, right? I'm like, well, now I feel bad about walking out with this jacket, but I'm in a dream. So I mean, how does that work exactly? Like, is this bad karma? Or, I mean, what's the lesson here? How do I do this? I'm like, well, so I make a decision. I'm like, well, I'll manifest my credit card. Why not? And I'll just say it's in my pocket. Again, I could manifest it in front of me in thin air.
Right.
And the results will vary for most people when you do that. And like I said, it takes more energy. It's easier to find it. I don't know why that is.
Wow.
There's something about, and I feel it's something about that, we're domesticated to this world where you go find something.
Yeah,
you don't just pull it out of your butt, right? You go find it. So it would make sense that that's somehow a natural thing for us to move into the dream realm.
That's
so I'm like, all right, my wallet is in my pocket. And it was. I pull my wallet out. So I go and I pay for the jacket. He runs my credit card. So I'm walking out of the shop, and I think this thing for just a second. I'm like, if that shows up on my credit card bill, I am going to put myself into a loony bin for the next 60 days. And
Right.
I thought the idea of that was so funny. I laughed myself awake. I mean, I actually woke up laughing. I was still laughing. I'm like, that's pretty funny. Like, what if that shows up on my credit card statement? Like, I'm going to dispute it is all I
Right.
can say.
For
I'm going to
sure.
dispute it, and I'm going to have some words with Visa is all I can say.
Some
Can
like
you, yeah. Like, do you have a video? I want to see the video of me in the
right,
shop. Like, where,
right.
prove that was I signing the paper? The receipt? I don't know.
Well, yeah, where's that security footage? You
I
wake up,
want that. Yes, I want that security footage.
it's like a $400 jacket.
It wasn't. I remember how much it was. It wasn't that expensive. It was a specific price too. It was like
That's
50. It was like $57 and some odd change, or something like that. Yeah, it was a specific price. I recall that.
that's
But yeah,
hilarious.
I was like, oh, now
Huh.
I'm going to go outside and back onto into the
Mhm.
city streets and get into some trouble. And I just thought that was so funny. I just like anything that throws you off a little bit, even if, negatives or positives,
Yeah.
weird imbalances like that. It's very easy to be kicked out of your dream. One thing that is very common is heights. Even if you're not afraid of heights, when you start flying,
Hmm.
you will get when you fly in a lucid dream, you will feel distance. You will feel vertigo. You will feel, that sense when you're up really high and you're like, you sense that yawning space opening up between you and the ground. And, if you can get tricked out with that, and you can get kicked out from
Kicked out.
doing stuff like this. And
Huh.
when I say kicked out is what I really mean is it's hard to describe. It's just like, things just go black and you just lose your awareness.
Game over.
It's just, yeah, exactly. Game over. Yep. That's about
That's
what we
interesting. You mentioned that the heights. One of my buddies, I think it was episode 8. My buddy Sam always had these dreams where he was up on a really tall ledge and like he was unable. You just couldn't get down. And he learned that smoking weed kept him from having these nightmares. So he would just smoke weed more often. But they were like actual like really scary nightmares for him. And he basically said like he would either just jump off and end it
Hmm.
or stay up there, which felt like forever for him.
Yeah.
Um,
Sure. Was he naturally afraid of heights? I mean, did he have
hmm. I can't answer that.
Okay.
I might have to go back and listen.
Because otherwise, if it wasn't direct, my intuition would be represented something else, or it
Mm,
could be something that's very face value, like he's just trying to deal with the fear of heights. I mean, that's that.
yeah.
But
Huh.
it's you can take that in a lot of different directions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Dude, those were awesome stories. Will you just kind of plug your book real quick and where people can find you?
Absolutely. So the book is Tripping the Field. It is written by me. I think that we'll probably add some sort of info maybe to it when you post this and whatnot. So it
Yep.
shouldn't be too hard to find. But you can find Tripping the Field anywhere. I mean, it's a full wide release. Amazon, Barnes and Noble. I mean, literally anywhere. I every once in a while I'll just Google it and see where I find it next, and I'll find it in weird countries around the world. Sometimes I'm just
That's
like,
cool.
really, like someplace in India, like, or has some copies of it. I'm like, all right, cool. But yeah, it's just released in July. Tripping the Field. Oh, by the way, before I say anything else about
Mhm.
that, we always appreciate if you're going to buy the book, go back to the original publisher. My publisher is Glad Eye Press. You can find that on my site, which is Iboga Moon Productions, which is you can find that at my name,
Mhm.
ianjaydid.com.
Mhm.
That's probably the best link that I'll
Okay.
give you later
Yeah.
to post. If you go to ianjaydid.com, that is all of my projects are all housed there. My artwork, my cartooning, my articles. You can find everything that I've been doing for the
Cool.
past year or so. But we always appreciate it if you buy it from the publisher, because Jeff Bezos from Amazon has
Mm.
enough money. I
That's true.
think he's not
Yeah.
going to be running out of cash anytime soon. So
Yeah.
when you buy from the publisher, directly from the publisher, more of your money goes back to the people who actually created this to begin with.
Yeah.
So always go back
Support.
to that. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
much better
Absolutely.
to better
Absolutely.
support. But Tripping the Field is, like I said, it is fiction, and that will become very
Mhm.
evident. It deals with crazy religious cults. It deals with monsters and shape-shifting and shamanism and astral projection and lucid dreaming. And it is a wild adventure through South America and Tibet and the back roads of Colorado.
Hmm.
And it is just a wacky, wonderful story. But the story is when, as you read it, the story is designed to pull you and pull your consciousness into this framework that I've been talking about with you, this
Hmm.
idea, this model of the world. As you read it, the story will start teaching you how the world works. So you kind of have to start learning, how all of these all of these aspects work with consciousness. And the more the better you're able to pick up what the book is teaching you, the better I think you're going to be able to start really engaging in the story and go, all right, I can understand where these characters are at, how they operate. And
Hmm.
it's a lot of fun. I think it's because even though the story is completely absurdist fiction, there's a lot of truth to it, because like the philosophy at the heart of it is absolutely all based on all of the things I've been talking about. But it was my it was my project. It was my goal to just see what are the furthest bounds of this practice that I'm talking about. This, all these things that I've touched on, I wanted to really explore, like, what are the craziest things that could happen theoretically with
Yeah.
these kind of skills. Like, if humans really started getting really good with these skills, how far can you take it?
Hmm.
And that's kind of what the book explores in a very fun, wacky way. So yeah, it's a good read, is what I think. I think I've read it 7 times, and I'll still be like, oh my god, what's going to happen? Because I like it's weird, because I
Yeah.
mean, I wrote it, but at the same time, I don't know where this book came from.
Yeah.
I'll read this sometimes and be like, I didn't write this. Somebody else wrote this, and it just sort of came from some other place. I couldn't tell you, man. It still trips me out.
I mean, it sounds fun. And I mean, as long as you had fun writing it,
It was a blast. Yeah, it's
yeah,
totally fun.
that's what it's about,
Sure.
man. But
Yep.
I'm excited. Again, I really appreciate the copy that you're sending out. That's
Oh,
fucking
my
awesome,
pleasure.
man.
My pleasure. It's
So
worth it.
yeah, I think it'll be a fun read, and I'm excited to dig through it for sure.
Thanks. I appreciate it. Very much appreciated, man.
Ian,
Yes.
again, thank you for your time, man. I think this is gonna be a killer episode.
Yeah.
It's golden. Like
Good
everything is,
conversation, man.
yeah,
Yeah,
this is
absolutely. Thank
awesome.
you.
And
Yeah.
I think we can definitely probably have you on again sometime soon. So
This is one of these things where, I mean, it's just a matter of how long can my voice hold out for. You know what I mean? It really is like there's so much stuff locked in my head. I could tell you 5 different stories each time, and I'd never repeat the same one. And they just there's so many other things. So sure, anytime you want to have me back on, I'm happy to chat. So sure.
awesome, man. Well,
All right,
thanks
man.
again, and you
Thanks,
have a
Mason.
wonderful night, man.
You too. Take care.
Sure.